Welcome to the Holistic Kids Show.
My name's Abdullah.
And my name's Iman.
We're the Holistic Kids, here to educate us kids.
Have you guys learned about DNA in school?
We lost.
Really?
Yes.
DNA makes you one of a kind. About 30 trillion cells in our body, and DNA is found in every of those cells.
I just learned that if you were to extract DNA from each cell, it would reach to the sun 100 times, from this earth to the sun 100 times.
That's a lot. And DNA makes you human,
a monster.
But a cat, and even a dolphin,
Dolphin. A DNA makes you
Wow, really? Wow, really? Can we talk to your DNA? I've always wanted to be Spider-Man.
Well, you can talk to your DNA because every bite you take can influence everything down to your DNA. You can really become Spider-Man. Our guy is the expert in all things DNA. Mr. Kashif Khan, the CEO and the founder of a world-leading company called the DNA Company, to help us understand our DNA, the human instructional manual. The company has developed a functional approach to genomic interpretation, overall environment, nutrition, and lifestyle on the genetic blueprint. Personalized and health outcomes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's awesome to be here, you guys. It sounds like you did your research before we got here today.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool.
So, Miss, love to hear your story. What made you create the DNA company?
Well, I was actually pretty sick, a few years ago. A bunch of stuff was going on. I had eczema, I had psoriasis, my left eye, I literally couldn't even open my eye because there was so much eczema. I used to get migraines. My business partner used to drive me home because I couldn't function and I'd have to go to bed and sleep. And I was going to all these different doctors and I was getting a pill for something and being sent to the hospital to get a scan for something else. And it kept going on and on and on. I realized this doesn't make sense. All these pills, all this stuff, I still have the problem. It didn't go away. And that's when I started digging deeper. And I realized that me, the same guy sitting next to my business partner, I had all these problems and he didn't have any of them. So what was the difference? And that's when I started to think there's something going on inside. And so I found somebody who specializes in DNA and I started to learn. And that's why I heard that, you mentioned it, your instruction manual, mine was broken. There was things missing that my business partner had. And then all of a sudden I started to heal by knowing what I actually needed. And it's reading this DNA that allows you to sort of understand what's going on in the inside. Then you know how to react with the world around you.
That is amazing. So let's start with the basics. On this topic can be very common for kids. We hear words like DNA, genes, chromosomes. What does DNA actually stand for?
So DNA is actually an acid. So what happens is it's a building block of your cells, right? So imagine an instruction manual is literally inside your cells and it's telling all the functions what to do, right? What ends up happening is in that strand, a gene, so your DNA is a bunch of genes. There's 23 chromosomes that they're called that connect together, and you get a set from your mom and a set from your dad. They connect together, and that makes you, right? You got the legacy from your mom, a legacy for your dad, and that designs who you are, how you think, how you feel. how all your systems work, how healthy you are, all these things. Now, because you now have your unique code, it uniquely is telling your cells how to function, right? So that DNA, all of a sudden, the differences between me and you is how we look, how we experience, how we talk, how long our hair is, why I don't have any right now, right? That's all based on that. So we each, your DNA is made out of 22,000 genes. So the 22,000 genes each do something in your body. One tells your nose how long to be, one tells your heart how quick to beat, and all those instructions. Each one of those 22,000 genes is thousands of letters long, right? So each one is made up of thousands of letters. And somewhere in some of those genes, there can be a spelling mistake. And then that gene doesn't do a good job anymore. And that's what makes people either sick or not able to digest certain foods, or they get skin conditions, or their hair falls out, or whatever it is. So it starts with these chromosomes you get from your parents. Then within them, there's these 22,000 genes. Each one is thousands of letters long, but sometimes one of them is broken. And then that's where we need to focus. That's the thing that we can make ourselves better with.
So basically, DNA is if something is wrong with your DNA, then that means that there's something wrong with either your lifestyle or it affects your life enormously because it is you.
And yeah, and now there's two paths. There's genetic conditions. There's certain errors in your DNA that directly cause something. There's diseases that you're born with, right? So there's something called sickle cell syndrome where your cells are a different shape, and that's bad for your health and makes you sick, right? That's a genetic condition, meaning from the day you were born you have it. And one day some pharmaceutical company will make a pill that will fix that. We're working on that. Then there's what we call chronic conditions, meaning you're not born with diabetes, babies don't have cholesterol problems. All those diseases happen later when you're 50, 55, 60 years old. Because if you're born with weak genes for that thing, it doesn't mean you have that thing. It means that now, if you make the wrong choices in what you eat and how you exercise and what you're exposed to environmentally, you, with your weak genes, do a poor job of fighting that stuff. Where somebody else with the good quality genes will do a good job. That's why you see sometimes, grandma is 95 years old, walking down the street, no problem. Another grandma at 65 has a heart problem. And they maybe had the exact same life, but this grandma's genes was able to handle it. This grandma's genes wasn't. So if you understand what your genes do, you know what you can handle. And then all of a sudden you can be healthy.
That is so awesome, and I never knew that DNA how affect your sickness.
Awesome. Awesome.
We are seeing a lot of kids today that are getting sicker and sicker. Is it connected to genes like autism, or is autism connected to cancer?
So autism is exactly what I just spoke of, where say there's 100 autistic cases, right? 20%, 20 of those 100 were born with it, meaning that there's a direct gene that was switched on or off, and it equals that problem. And they were born with that problem. And now you have to live with it, or maybe there's some therapeutic that might come along and fix it, right? 80%, the much bigger number, they're treated the same way in terms of at the doctor, but it's different. They weren't born with it. They had, again, weak genes in certain areas, which led to them not being able to process certain chemicals, certain pollutants. There could be certain medications that they took that leads to inflammation that would then damage neurologically their systems, their brain, right? So then they get bucketed into this thing that we call autism. So what you see now is, if you go back a couple of generations, it used to be 1 in 10,000 kids was autistic. If you go back another generation, I think it was 1 in a few hundred. Now it's 1 in 60. Right? So what changed from a couple of generations? Our grandparents, it was 1 in 10,000. For us, it's 1 in 60. So what changed? Our genes didn't change. It's that in exposure, the amount of chemicals that are now used in the beautiful grass in your lawn, the amount of chemicals that are used to clean everything in your house, your clothes when you're buying sort of disposable cheap clothing that is, with dyes and chemicals, all the loads we have now we didn't used to have. The foods that we eat that have, you know, food dyes and colors on them and preservatives, and our grandparents didn't eat that stuff. So you three boys, if we look at your DNA, it's probably very similar to your grandparents. The difference is the world you live in has changed, right? You were designed for what your grandparents did, not for what you're doing today. So that takes time to change. And that's why there's so much more autism today.
So that is what we hear all the time from my mom. Zan, can you say the phrase that she says all the time?
He hasn't been listening.
The
That's genetic.
genes may load the gun, but the environment pulls the trigger.
That's exactly
Basically,
right. That's
because
exactly right. So yeah. Oh, sorry. Can you still hear me? Oh, I lost you guys for a second. So what you were saying was exactly right. That, if you can be born with bad circumstances with a loaded gun to your head, but you're not pulling the trigger yet. That load of the wrong exposures pull the trigger. But that being said, not everybody has a gun to their head, right? So somebody might have really good genetics, which is why 1 out of 60, not 60 out of 60 get autism, right? So it's 1 out of 60 that the genes are so bad, they just can't cope with all this stuff. So they end up getting sick. But 59 still did okay. So they didn't have the gun to their head. It's that 1 out of 60 that we got to be very careful to not pull the trigger, to not have the wrong environment and nutrition and lifestyle problems, right? That's where we got to look.
How can we use our advantage? Because my friends tell me that they can eat whatever they want as they get no diabetes, or what they do, because everyone in their family has diabetes.
Yes,
Is
and
that true?
this is one of the biggest errors in how we look at health. So, chronic diseases. First of all, we have to understand what chronic diseases are. These are things you're not born with. You're not born with diabetes, right? If it was a genetic condition, you would have it from birth because a gene is causing it. It's not a genetic condition. What is happening genetically is some people, like, South Asian, where we have Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi people, like, for example, who were on here today, the way we deal with insulin, the hormone that regulates sugar, we don't do such a good job. So again, we have the loaded gun. But if you don't eat sugar every day, you're not pulling the trigger. You're not causing that insulin to go up and down and causing the problem, right? So why is it that certain ethnic groups in certain families have so much more diabetes, and then you just believe, well, my dad had it, my grandma had it, my uncle had it, I'm probably going to get it? No, you have to look at what were the habits of your grandma, and if you start to look at the habits, you'll see they were probably similar. They probably ate similar food. They probably didn't exercise the same way that they were supposed to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in that same family, we can almost guarantee that there's somebody that doesn't have diabetes. We don't ask the question, what was that person doing right? We need to ask, if I have an 80% chance risk of diabetes because everybody in my family has it, well, I got to look at the 20% that didn't get it with the exact same loaded gun, the exact same genetics. What did they do? What did they eat? How did they exercise? Because I have the same genes as them and I can be like them. So going back to what is a chronic disease? A chronic disease is something that you're not born with that takes time to develop. So when you're diabetic, it didn't start the day the doctor told you you're diabetic. It took 10, 15 years to get there. And this is why the Center for Disease Control now has something that they call pre-diabetes. And guess what? 80 million Americans, 88 million, in fact, almost 30% of the country are pre-diabetic. There's almost 40 million diabetics, but there's more than double that pre-diabetic, that they're very close. So what does that mean? Even the doctors are telling you that you don't have it, but you're close to getting it, which means you did something to get you there. You can reverse it. So the Center for Disease Control also has diabetes reversal programs. So if somebody says, well, my uncle had it, my mom had it, I'm probably going to get it, then why does the Center for Disease Control say, here's a reversal program? We can actually remove diabetes from your body, from your identity, and not have it anymore, because we now know why chronic diseases happen. You're not born with them. You're born with bad genes. Now you need to have good habits. And if you have good habits, you're not going to get sick. And it's that simple. And if you are sick, instead of taking a pill to mask it for the rest of your life, you can remove the illness by understanding why it happens and dealing with that. And that's where we're at now with science.
So, what can kids use to make our DNA work?
So how do kids use it for their advantage?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say a couple things. What you have is the luxury of time, right? Look at me. Look at this white hair, right? I've been around for a while. So you have a lot more time than I do to make the right choices, which means the things that I have, guess what? If I made the right decision, this hair would be black still, because we now know scientifically why it turns white. It has to do with oxidative stress, oxidation, which means too much, call it free radical activity in the blood, toxic activity in the blood, and oxidation of cardiovascular output. So those two things lead to rapid aging. There's too much load to the cell. So I aged myself from the age of 25 to 35 much faster than I should have, because I didn't know what I was doing wrong. I was working too hard. I was overly stressed. I wasn't eating properly. I was doing everything wrong, right? You, as a child, have the luxury of time, meaning you don't have these problems yet. And this is warning flag to show you what's happening inside. So if you start doing everything right now, you can avoid this, and you can avoid the diabetes, and you can avoid the cholesterol problem, and the women can avoid the breast cancer, and etc., and etc., etc. Or you can choose to just not care, which I don't recommend. But some families believe that, it's going to happen anyway, like you said. And then guess what? It's going to happen anyway, right? The other major advantage for kids is when you're growing up, everyone wants the best for their child. And children also want the best for themselves. You want to succeed and be the best in your class and the best on the team, etc. If you don't understand how you're wired, then how do you make the right choices? Your DNA tells you how your brain is wired. So if I'm deciding, do I want to be a doctor? Do I want to work with Elon Musk and build a rocket ship? Do I want to be a businessman and grow a business and open some restaurants because that's what I really like? We already know through your DNA how you think. And as a child, you may not be that aware yet of how you think because you haven't experienced the world like your parents have, right? You don't know yourself yet. So imagine now if I could give you a map of your brain and I could tell you, here's all the chemicals in your brain, and here's how you think, here's how you feel, here's why you in the middle, when mama says, why did you eat the cookies? You start laughing at her. And you on the right, when mama says, why did you eat the cookies? You start crying. Because the way you deal with the emotions is different. And now imagine understanding that about yourself, how much better you could plan your future, knowing exactly how you think, how you feel, how you react, even how you deal with your mom and your dad. It's all pre-wired here. I'll give you a simple example. So there's a chemical called dopamine in your brain. Dopamine determines how you feel pleasure. So if you eat something tasty or you hug your mom and you feel happy, that's dopamine. It also powers reward. If I achieve something at work, or you got a good grade at school, that's reward, right? The sense of achievement. Some people feel that at different levels. And if you understand your DNA, you understand how you do that. Now there's a chemical called COMT. It's actually an enzyme that gets rid of the dopamine, brings you back to normal once you're done with that pizza or whatever you were doing, right? Some people have a slow COMT, some people have a fast COMT. So now imagine the person who has really low dopamine levels, right? They don't really feel much, and they have a really fast COMT. So when they're at school, they're less likely to feel the satisfaction of that B plus or A plus. They're going to strive for that reward more and more and become a reward seeking. Now imagine the other kid who has the maximum feeling of dopamine and the slow comp, where it's very easy for them to feel pleasure and reward. So they might be the kid that, leaves the socks on the table, says that, yeah, I'll do that, and then they don't do it. And they'll say that, oh, I really like this project, so I'm going to do a good job. But the other stuff I don't like, I'm not even going to start it. Because it's so easy for them to feel pleasure that they don't feel motivated to do things they're not interested in. So now imagine if you know this about how your brain works, and all of a sudden you don't need to fight with mom and dad and your teachers anymore. You can understand that this is how I think. So I need to plan the way I work better so that I get to my goal. Instead of the instructions that the teachers gives for all the 30 students in the room are the same. Well, that's not right, because we're not all the same. The way we think is different. So that's why there's a few kids that don't do well. There's a few kids that do really well, and then there's a bunch in the middle. So if you want to be the ones that do really well, you got to understand what gets you there. And it's different for all of us. So that can really help you if you understand your DNA.
What can use kids to make what lifestyle changes we kids can do to help our DNA?
Well, if you have your DNA and you know what you're doing, it's very easy because your DNA will tell you. How do you eat? How do you think? How do you exercise? What sport should you play? How do you develop muscle as you're getting into your teens? How do you burn fat? All of that is designed in your DNA, and you can understand it. If you don't have your DNA, well, then you got to take your top habits, which I'm sure mamas are probably already telling you, right? And you got to eliminate what didn't exist for grandma, right? The way our ancestors lived is what you're designed for. So all of the things that you do today that potentially are harmful and are new, you should get rid of them. And what do I mean? When you eat food out of a box, even if it says organic, even if it says gluten-free, whatever you're looking for, it was still processed by machines with heavy metals. It was still stored with some chemicals that allowed it to be stored properly. It was still needed to be shipped for a long time. Regardless of, again, what the label says, if it wasn't made in your city, locally, close, fresh, it is no longer proper food. That's a simple thing. It doesn't matter what your DNA says. All we're saying is that the worse your DNA is, the worse the problem is going to be. The better DNA is, you might do that a little better, but it's still going to be bad for you. So that's one simple thing. Packaged foods, I understand that it's convenient and easy and they taste good, right? But you get used to shifting your priorities and start to think about how much time you play video games, and how much time you focus on fighting with mama instead of doing your homework. That's the time that you could be spending with mama making that food, right? So that's one big thing you could do. If it's in a box or a package and it's not real whole food that was local and fresh, it's probably not real food. It's designed to look like food, and it tastes good, and it makes you feel good, and your dopamine level goes up, so you become addicted to it. But it's not nourishing yourself. And then all of a sudden, oh, everybody in my family has diabetes. Everybody in my family has cardiovascular issues. Everybody, right? So that now you start to understand what those things come from. The other thing I would say is we are meant to be active. Our ancestors did not sit around the way we do, right? They would get up in the morning and move until night. So that simple thing of understanding that we don't have enough activity and building that in tremendously is going to push the Center for Disease Control says if you exercise properly, you can add 10 plus years to your life. Just that one thing, because we just don't do enough, right? The other thing I would tell you, and this is especially true for kids, not only what we eat, but how we eat. We eat too much. We are not designed to eat the way that we do today, where, okay, I had my breakfast, now I need a snack. I had my lunch, now I need dessert. It's too late, dinner. Okay, let me have a snack to get me ready for dinner. Your body is meant to be hungry and empty. That is why is fasting so important? Why are we told to fast for 30 days for any Muslim people that are listening here? Even in most religions, there's fasting is important. Why? Because there's a power much more intelligent than us that knows how our body works, that knew we need maintenance. Just like your car, just like your house, you have to maintain it if you want it to last a long time. That fasting allows us to utilize all the broken tissues and cells that are going to cause problems to our body. Simple example, your body uses proteins and amino acids as fuel to build your muscles and build your body. As you age, they start to fray and break up and they start to enter your bloodstream, right? They can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and go into your brain and start to replace healthy tissue. This is why Health Canada now calls Alzheimer's type 3 diabetes. Because if you eat too much, you never get a chance to be hungry, where your body starts to use all this broken material as fuel. And you have too much of it in your body. This is why we need to fast. Because when you fast, there's no food, there's no fat, no carbs, no sugar, no protein in your body. So your body will go use all that garbage that's floating around and get rid of it and use it as fuel instead. And then you're preventing Alzheimer's. You're preventing dementia. You're preventing inflammation. You're preventing so many things. So one of the biggest things I could tell you, if you don't know your DNA, but you just want to know what's the thing I can do, we eat too much. Get rid of the snacks. You don't need them. Be hungry. You need to be hungry once in a while. You need to eat in a day the right amount of calories, the right amount of nutrition, the right amount of food, but you should not be constantly eating, which is what we do. Plan your meals, eat your meals. That's what our ancestors did for generations, and they didn't have the diseases we have today.
Awesome. I need to
Awesome.
understand more about my DNA. Can you tell us how us kids learn more about our DNA?
For sure. So on our website, it's thednacompany.com. I'm just going to pull this up because I asked our office to get a discount ready for everybody. So if you go to thednacompany.com /holistic kids. So thednacompany.com /holistic kids. There's a discount for anyone that's listening, but you order the test or you can use the code holistic kids in the checkout. There's two ways to do it. Either go to the regular website and when you check out, use the code holistic kids and it will give you a discount, or go to the dnacompany.com /holistic kids. You'll get the discount. And thank you for the Holistic Kids Show for getting that discount for everybody. When you get the test, you will learn about 6 things. And these are the 6 things that we've studied nearly 10,000 people now. And in those 10,000 people, we've learned these are the 6 things that everybody needs to know. And if you do these 6 things right, you can add 10 healthy years to your life, right? So the 6 things are cardiovascular, everything about diabetes, cholesterol, how does my heart work? What quality of hardware do I have? Literally, do I have good quality arteries that are stainless steel, or are they more prone to inflammation, which means I need to be careful? So cardiovascular. Then diet and nutrition. What am I designed to eat? We hear about being a vegan, going on a keto diet with a lot of fat. You know, we see celebrities that go on a meat-only carnivore diet. Well, what am I designed to do? Your genes already tell you that. So your DNA will tell you the gene that metabolizes fat, you have a good quality or bad quality. The gene that produces the enzymes to help you break down beans and lentils and dals, for example, you can have different versions of that gene. So you know if you could be a good vegan or not, as an example. So diet, nutrition is the second one. Then hormones and fitness. How is your body developing? What are you designed to do? Are you designed to be a football player? Are you designed to be, a sprinter where you can run really fast? Are you designed to be, maybe more of an academic? How is your body designed? Imagine knowing that in advance, and being sort of more satisfied in your choices, right? So hormones and fitness. And it also deals with things like hair and skin. When you get pimples and hair problems, all that's all genetically driven, and you can understand that better and deal with it better. The fourth area is sleep. A lot of people have problems sleeping properly. So now imagine if you understood why you can't sleep properly. Some people can't fall asleep. Some people wake up in the middle of the night and they don't feel so good. Some people sleep the whole night, but then when they wake up, they feel grumpy, like I didn't get proper sleep. That's all driven by your DNA. So if you understand why, all of a sudden you can make the changes you need to make so you get good, deep quality sleep. And then you feel good and you're ready for school or work or whatever you need to do the next day. Then there's inflammation. Inflammation is the root cause of disease. So all these chronic diseases we're talking about that happen when you're 40, 50, 60 years old, it's because you have inflammation. Now, where you have the inflammation, that determines what disease you get. So now imagine being able to understand the building blocks inside how you're built, how you deal with inflammation and clearing toxins, and why 1 out of 60 kids gets autism. Which one are you? Are you the one, or are you the 59? And how careful do you need to be, right? Then there is the brain, mood and behavior. So everything about how you think and feel, and how do you experience the world, and what would you be good at? Are you an accountant, a doctor? Should you be a business person? Those types of things. And the last one, sorry, did we go through six? I think we went through all six. Cardiovascular, diet, hormones.
Yeah.
Yes, we did. Yeah. So that's what you get.
Uh,
Now, with this, you literally have your human instruction manual. You now know how your body was designed, right? And you now know what decisions to make to be healthy, and you can extend your life and have a much better childhood because you already know what to do.
Now, how our families live, our medications, internal and external environment, and the lifestyle, digestive health, including our microbiome, our guts, bacteria, nutrition, toxins, stressors, trauma, exercise, sleep, optimism, and or any other life experiments can turn out and
And our DNA can even affect our thinking. Our can tell us to eat, to develop muscle. So it is so important to understand our DNA. And we have the advantage of time. We kids use our DNA to our advantage. There's so much we can do to help our DNA. First, real, local, nourishing foods, so that you can help your DNA work a little better, and make sure to move and exercise. That simple thing can help add years plus to your life. Make sure to eat less and not much, and get rid of snack. And try to get decrease and constantly eating. There's so much we can do when we understand our DNA.
That was so empowering. Love those key points, everyone. Make sure to follow Mr. on social media and check that very justice. Thank you so much, Mr. Khan.
Thank you guys. You guys are doing an amazing job. You should keep it up because you're really helping people, and you're empowering people by learning. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Until next time,
I'm Dula.
and I'm Imad.
follow my family and I on social media, Mom MD, and look out for my mom's book, The Holistic Arcs, Your Guide to Healing Chronic Inflammation. And we are so excited to announce the new book, The Holistic RX, Your Guide to Healing Chronic Inflammation and Disease. And our mom's new books, The Holistic RX for Kids, Healthy Bodies in a Changing World. And the amazing children's book we wrote together, Healing Adventure. So Random Stealing Adventures. So check it out on Amazon. Great. Need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave a review so other kids can benefit. We need to work together to create a healthier future for all of us. And join this week for another episode of the Holistic Kid Show, where kids are empowering kids. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
again, Miss Han. So thankful for your
Mr.
time.
Thank you,
Mr.
guys.
Han.
This is
Yeah, I
great.
know.
Keep it up.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.